All right. If you're in the middle of dinner, put down your fork, spoon, knife. If you're driving your car, just hold the steering wheel steady. If you're in a store or restaurant, a lot of people are, and they wear the headphones and the earbuds and are listening to the program. Just keep doing your thing, but listen up. You're going to get very angry about the first minute, and then I want you to hear my reaction. In fact, so predictable is Joe Biden, my reaction is from October 1, 2020. Because it's the same playbook that the Democrats are putting out that they put out for the midterm elections. The same playbook that the Democrats are putting out that they put out against Donald Trump in 2020. They're saving democracy, you see, while they're burning down our constitutional republic. And they think they're going to fool the American people, but the American people aren't stupid. They're stupid. So let's start with the painful part. This is the new and first Joe Biden ad put together by the Marxists, the reprobates, Islamists, and all the others who are going to be voting for Joe Biden. Cut 17, go.
I've made the preservation of American democracy the central issue of my presidency.
Hold on. You notice how he slurs like he's a drunk? All right, start over. Go ahead.
I've made the preservation of American democracy the central issue of my presidency. I believe in free and fair elections and the right to vote fairly and have your vote counted. There's something dangerous happening in America.
Yes.
There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy.
Democrats.
All of us are being asked right now, what will we do to maintain our democracy?
Get rid
History's
of you.
watching. The world is watching.
Yes.
Most important, our children and grandchildren will hold us responsible.
Stop sniffing their hair.
The President and I have supported voting rights since day one of this administration.
You're a liar.
And I ask every American to join me in this cause. America is still a place of possibilities where the power resides with we, the people. That's our soul. We are the United States of America.
Mr. Executive
There is
Order.
nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
What a stupid ass ad. To be perfectly honest with you. Now, the real Joe Biden, October 1, 2020. I was on Hannity, and he gave me 9 minutes because I dug in. And when you listen to this, ask yourself what you just heard about Joe Biden, from Joe Biden. Is the biggest lie? The answer is yes. So again, this is from over 3 years ago when they were pulling the same thing against Donald Trump. Cut 18, go.
They keep asking the President of the United States, which is outrageous, if he'll denounce white supremacy. He's done it 20 times. But I want to honestly speak to the American people and go over the head of the media tonight. And I want you to ask this question. Is Joe Biden still a white supremacist? That's right. Is he still a bigot? And I'm going to use Joe Biden's own language that any moderator, any debate moderator can find, because it took me 40 minutes to dig all this up. 1975, October 12th, quote, Joe Biden. And he said this to the Philadelphia Inquirer. I think the Democratic Party could stand a liberal George Wallace, someone who's not afraid to stand up and offend people, someone who wouldn't pander, but would say what the American people know in their gut is right. And he says that also. He's referring to Alabama's notorious George Wallace. Also 1975, Joe Biden, quote, I think the concept of busing, that we're going to integrate people so that they all have the same access and they learn to grow up with one another and all the rest, is a rejection of the whole movement of black pride, is a rejection of the entire black awareness concept, where black is beautiful, black culture should be studied, and the cultural awareness of the importance of their own identity. If that doesn't come close to promoting segregation or opposing integration, 1975, I don't know what does. 1977, from the New York Times, Joe Biden, old comments. He says that non-orderly racial integration policies would cause his children to grow up in a racial jungle. He then says, unless we do something about this, my children are going to grow up in a jungle. The jungle being a racial jungle with tensions having built so high that it's going to explode at some point. Joe Biden, 1977, old letters that he wrote to a racist Southern senator, James Eastland, who was as racist and bigoted as they get, a segregationist Democrat from Mississippi. Quote, 1977, I want you to know that I very much appreciate your help during this week's committee meeting in attempting to bring my anti-busing legislation to a vote. Biden wrote on June 30, 1977 to James Eastland. Gee, that was in the Washington Post. I wonder how they forgot about that. Eastland was a plantation owner who believed blacks were an inferior race and forcefully fought desegregation throughout his career as a Democratic lawmaker in Mississippi. And they have letters going back between Biden and Eastland back to 1972 about Biden's friendship with Eastland. Now let's go to 1987. During a 1987 fundraising trip across the South for his unsuccessful 1988 presidential bid, Biden sought to appeal to white voters, telling audiences that he had received an award from George Wallace in 1973, that the segregationists had lauded him as, quote, one of the outstanding young politicians of America. Joe Biden. 1988. Also, 1988, on the floor of the United States Senate, Biden praised segregationist John Stennis, a racist segregationist from Mississippi, as a, quote, man of character. He even said that of Stennis, who opposed Brown versus Board of Education, was something called the Southern Manifesto. This was a racist manifesto a lot of these Democrat Southerners had signed on to. In fact, Biden even bragged about Stennis gifting him with the table on which the Southern Manifesto was signed. Wow. How did the media miss this? This is why we're going over the media's head and communicating with the American people, particularly African Americans and black Americans. 2017, Joe Biden says, I've been around so long, I worked with James Eastland, who, again, was this segregationist from Mississippi. Even in the days when I got there, the Democratic Party still had 7 or 8 old-fashioned Democratic segregationists. You'd get up, you'd argue like the devil with them. Then you'd go down and have lunch or dinner together. The political system worked. We were divided on issues, but the political system worked. That's Biden. 2019, comments he made about working with segregationists. 2019, Biden had been talking about his time working with Eastland and then Georgia's segregationist Herman Talmadge. In the 1970s, when he began discussing the relationship, Biden said, I was in a caucus with James Eastland, before imitating a Southern accent and claiming that the senator never called me boy, which, as we all know, is a derogatory term used against black men. Then the 1994 Biden crime bill. It wasn't just called the crime bill. It was the Biden crime bill. He kind of hides from it now. He was its main author. The Democrat Senate passed it. The Democrat House passed it. The Democrat president, Bill Clinton, who also has ties to segregationists, he signed it. But Biden was chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Here's what he said. We have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. He said in the speech from the floor of the House, Biden described a cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscious developing, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. He said, we should focus on them now, because if we don't, they will, or a portion of them, will become the predators 15 years from now. Now, who do you think he's talking about? Biden's 1993 predator remarks were similar to comments made by Hillary Clinton in 1996, where she warned of super predators who had no conscience, no empathy, and who need to be brought to heel. 2010. Oh, man. How is it that he escapes scrutiny for his bigoted, racist past? Comments coming out of his big mouth. 2010, eulogy for Robert Byrd, who founded the Klan in West Virginia. You know, West Virginia had broken off from Virginia during the Civil War because it was with the Union. Robert Byrd starts a chapter of the Klan in West Virginia. So excited are the Democrats about him, and he filibustered the 1964 Civil Rights Act. They made him the majority leader in the Democrat Party, and one of his pals was Joe Biden. He fought the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And one of the things he said was, to me, for a lot of us, this is at the funeral, Byrd was a mentor and a friend, and for a lot of us, he was a guide. Now, I have a question to ask. Richard Spencer, you ever hear of him?
We're about to
Apparently
run
he's
here.
like one of the heads of the neo-Nazi movement or the Klan or something of that sort in the United States. You know who he endorsed, Sean? He endorsed Joe Biden for president of the United States. You know, when our president, Donald Trump, was asked about David Duke, he denounced David Duke. They gave it, David Duke endorsed you. What do you think about that? He denounced it over and over and over again in 2016. Richard Spencer is bigger than David Duke in the crackpot, subhuman, white supremacist movement. And Biden's not asked once what he thinks about that. Now, I want to move on.
Mark,
From African Americans.
Mark, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, all right.
Mark.
Let me just end with this question. Joe Biden, are you still a white supremacist? Are you still a bigot? Are you exactly what Kamala Harris called you? I think in many ways you still are. In many ways you still are, because all you do is you yell at the president, you call him a liar, and you dare to call him a racist? You are a disaster. That's why they hide you in the basement. And that's why you started interrupting the President of the United States. The same thing you did to Paul Ryan. If we had an honest press rather than a corrupt press,
Mark,
if we had people who really wanted to get to the bottom of each candidate,
let's
Joe Biden wouldn't have a chance.
Hannity was very tolerant of me on that particular program, for which I appreciate it. But I had a lot to explain. And it didn't take me long to dig up all that information because, you know, folks, I've used it here before. Talks about an extremist movement. Joe Biden is a very diabolical, evil simpleton. He's never cared about black people. He's never cared about Jewish people. He cares about himself. He cares about enriching his family. He cares about a re-election. He likes the life he has. That's all he's ever done. Run for public office. All he cares about is power. It's not like Obama, who is a committed true Marxist, or Bernie Sanders, a committed true Marxist. Joe Biden's a Marxist wannabe, but he's implementing their schedule, their agenda, their plans, because that's how he came to power, and that's how he intends to hold power. Everything I told Sean then, and I've played for you now, is known by every media outlet in America. And yet they let Joe Biden run for president, claiming that he stood for democracy, claiming that MAGA, Make America Great Again now, they turn it into some kind of a Nazi statement. Make America Great Again. Well, he's claiming that he stands for democracy. He's trashing the Make America Great Again group. Pathetic. What exactly has Joe Biden done to advance the cause of quote-unquote democracy? Nothing. Quite the contrary. Joe Biden's going to go to Valley Forge. We may have a storm here on the East Coast. Valley Forge, last time I checked, is on the East Coast. It's in Pennsylvania. So he's moved his speech on democracy, marking the anniversary of January 6th, up a day due to the incoming winter storm in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic regions this weekend, Mr. President. He's no George Washington. George Washington spent weeks at Valley Forge, one of the worst snowstorms on record. But Joe Biden's going to move up his January 6th speech to January 5th. He didn't want to get caught in cold weather.